Meanwhile, the UN is warning the Israeli-Palestinian conflict could be headed for full-scale war. The U.S. Embassy in Jerusalem is urging staff to stay close to bomb shelters due to the threat of rocket attacks as the State Department tries to de-escalate the situation. Chief National Correspondent Matt Gutman is there with the latest.
Overnight, the sky igniting with Israeli airstrikes and Hamas rocket fire. As Israeli warplanes howled over Gaza, this salvo of missiles ripping into this 14-story building. Drone video flying over the debris fields. Israel said it was targeting Hamas infrastructure, but warned civilians before bombing. Palestinian health officials say over 80 people have been killed, including Hamas operatives, but also dozens of civilians and at least 17 children, nearly 500 wounded. Hamas has launched over 1,600 rockets towards Israel the past few days. Those rockets targeting the Tel Aviv metro area where nearly half of the population lives. A Palestinian rocket hitting this Israeli apartment building. Rescuers scrambling to get people out. Some brought out on stretchers. Those air raid sirens wailing almost hourly, including while we were on the air.
Another siren sounding, which means there's about a minute and 30 seconds before the rockets start falling. There they are. You can see some of it looks like Iron Dome. Projectile rising right above us.
And there is little sign of let up.
But they are not running out of rockets just yet. They have fired quite a lot of rockets, but unfortunately they've been able to stockpile a lot of rockets over the last years. So that is not the case.
Would you say there are thousands more?
I would say that there are thousands more.
The conflict also spreading to the West Bank, where Israeli troops clashed with Palestinian protesters. In the Israeli town of Lod, ethnic Palestinian citizens of Israel clashing with police, leaving dozens wounded. They say they are demonstrating against being treated as second-class citizens. And south of Tel Aviv, this horror. A mob of right-wing Jewish activists pulling a terrified Arab motorist out of his vehicle, even using an Israeli flag to beat him.
And Matt Gutman joins me live now from Petah Tikva, just outside Tel Aviv. Matt, those images are hard to watch. How are things there now?
Well, I'm in a town called Petah Tikva. You just saw the Israeli military spokesman walk by, doing something in Spanish, actually, Diane. But this is a building that did not get a direct hit from a rocket fired, but the rocket landed over there. I'm actually going to show you. The shock waves from that rocket punched the hole through this this wall here, and right now they're cutting down trees. The cars out there were incinerated. They're just trying to clean it up. I'll give you a little bit of a walk through here, shattering this entire building, all the buildings around, firing shrapnel 360 degrees and creating this fireball. Now I'm going to show you a detail here because everything looks black. And this is the kitchen. Now, it looks like the walls are black, but all of that is actually soot. Miraculously, all the people in the building, we were told, were actually in the bomb shelter downstairs when the rocket hit. Nobody was killed. A couple of people were lightly wounded, but nobody was badly hurt. Now, about an hour and a half ago, we were down here doing some reporting, talking to people, when there was another air raid siren. All the people who were here trying to pick up their possessions or whatever is left. I mean, you can see shattered cases everywhere, and it gives you a sense of the power of those rockets. As they were trying to pick it up, air raid sirens, people had to go again into the bomb shelter, and they basically were crying. There was hysteria because they were suffering PTSD. So quite a dramatic moment, very emotional for some of these people. That's in Israel. As we know, in Gaza, there are continued airstrikes. Doesn't seem to be any let up. The Israeli government is meeting to talk about the possibilities of a possible ground incursion into Gaza. So despite the UN's, despite President Biden's hope that this is going to be the end of violence soon, it doesn't look like that's going to be the case, Diane.
And Matt, people there live in very close quarters. They live close to each other. So how are they reacting to all of this and knowing that their homes are vulnerable at any moment?
I think you just hit the nail on the head. They just feel extraordinarily vulnerable. And so with most of the people that we've spoken to here, frankly, they say, okay, we've got to attack Gaza. We've got to put an end to Hamas. We've got to retaliate. There's a smaller subsect of the people with whom I've spoken to say, okay, we need peace. We need to come to terms with these people. This can't happen anymore. But that is really the unifying understanding here is that this seems to be an untenable way of living, just that nobody can seem to claw their way out of it, Diane.
And Matt, President Biden has spoken to Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. He's calling for both sides to de-escalate. So what's the latest on the efforts to try to broker a ceasefire?
Well, we know that a top U.S. official from the State Department is being sent here. There are conversations between Hamas and the Russians and the Europeans. Hamas says it is willing to enter into a ceasefire with Israel, provided that Israel stop any activities on the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. That's not likely to happen at all, especially with the Israeli cabinet meeting today to discuss possible incursions. Now, the Israeli military tells me they have no timeline right now, which means this could go on for days or even longer. They're not at the point of launching a ground assault. They don't have the troops called up yet, but that is certainly something that they're talking about. And really, it's a question of how much they want to degrade Hamas's capability. You heard in the piece, the Israeli military believes that Hamas still has many thousands of rockets with this kind of 65-mile or plus range, carrying those 100-pound warheads that can do some significant damage. The question is, how much does Israel want to try to crush Hamas? How much longer is Hamas willing to fight like this and to suffer those casualties and the destruction of their infrastructure in Gaza? You saw those buildings collapse. Clearly, Israel is making a statement. And again, those air sorties aren't really slowing down right now.
All right, Matt Gutman there in Israel. What an image. Matt, stay safe. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.